Hey guys, it's Shadow, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be making another Civ tier list, this time looking at team bonuses. We're going to be looking at them in regards to how they interact in team games specifically, not so much how they impact 1v1. Shall we begin? So first up we have the Aztecs. The Aztecs obviously having the extra relic gold generation. It's not the biggest bonus in the world, but in a team game scenario, it can be a little bit useful having a bit of a buffer, especially if you've got like a Lithuanians on your team. Of course, you'd normally have trade set up at some point, so again, it's not the biggest buff to your team though, so it will be a B tier for me. Next up, we have the Berbers. So the Berbers have the Genitor available to them as their team bonus. Now in a 1v1 scenario, there are times that the Genitor can be quite useful. But in a team game scenario, for the most part, you don't really want to making trash units anyway, so it's probably going to be on the D tier for me. After that, you have one of the new civs from the Dawn of the Dukes expansion, the Bohemians. They make it so your markets produce 80% faster, so that initial gold that you invest into your trade carts will start coming back a lot quicker than you normally would have otherwise got it. For me, this is an easy S tier at the moment. I can't think of any other bonus that changes trade quite as much as this, except for the Spanish trade cards, which we'll get to a little bit later. The Britons is the next civ, and the Britons have it so your archery rangers produce 20% faster than they would normally. For me, this is another S tier bonus. Normally, your composition during feudal will be scouts and archers, and in castle age it will be knights and archers. So you're almost always going to find value from this bonus. Next up, you have the Bulgarians. The Bulgarians make it so your blacksmith research takes 80% faster. Now the thing with blacksmith techs is they don't really take that long to research anyway, but it can be handy in the early castle age if both you and your opponent are up at the same time, and Bodkin comes in a little bit faster than your opponent. To me, this will be a B or a C tier bonus for team games though. Next up, you have the Burgundians. Burgundians have it so your relics now generate food as well as gold. It's not the biggest bonus, but it can be a little bit useful if you want a little bit of an extra food trickle. Probably would put it on the D tier, honestly, because it's not really useful having the extra food coming in for the most part. But it can be coupled with some other relic bonuses such as the Burmese and the Aztecs. Funnily enough, the next civ is the Burmese, allowing you to see the relic positions on the map. Now, similar to most of the relic bonuses in team games, I don't think they're necessarily that amazing, but you can couple it again with the Lithuanians, where you can now contest the relics a little bit more easily than you would otherwise be able to. Next up, we have the Byzantines, so it makes it so your monks heal a little bit faster. I don't know exactly where to place this because monks are always going to get value in 1v1 or team game scenario pretty much. But having it so they heal about 50% faster, I don't know how much of a difference this really makes. And normally going to be spamming so many units for the long term anyway. I'd probably put it on the C tier for the moment, possibly B tier as well, because it is nice to definitely be able to heal up those weak units rather than having to train a whole mass of new ones. Next up, we have the Celt Siege Workshop bonus, which makes it so your siege units produce 20% faster. Now, the biggest case for this one would probably be in arena team games, or even Black Forest team games, where you'll be making a lot of siege. Definitely see this being a B tier bonus, maybe slightly ahead of the Aztec bonus, for those maps more specifically. In Arabia team games or other open maps where you more train trebuchets, and occasionally a bombard cannon or siege ram, it's probably not as good as it is on those Black Foresty type maps. Next up, we have the Chinese. Now, their bonus was changed in the last patch, where it used to give 45 food bonus. Now it gives an extra 10%. So in the early game, this is a huge nerf because it used to be 45 food, and now on a base farm, it's an extra 17 food. An extra 17 food is definitely nice, but nothing to write home about too much. And then obviously it is a bonus that scales by age, where you get heavy plow and crop rotation and horse collar, of course. At the moment, I'm going to put it in the B tier. It's nicer than some of the other bonuses, but not that revolutionary anymore. Next up, you have the Cumans, which make your palisade walls a little bit stronger. So it used to be quite a bit stronger than it is now. but with all the nerfs that have come in, probably gonna say this is a maybe high C tier, low B tier bonus now. After that, you have the Ethiopians, which make it so your towers and outposts have an extra 3 line of sight. For 1v1s, this is definitely noticeable and quite useful, where you have outposts all over the map to try and find out where your opponents are. In a team game scenario, at least from my perspective, you don't see as many outposts, and especially not as many towers either way. Probably going to be another C tier bonus, because it can be useful when it is useful, but for the most part, it's not going to change too many things. Next up, we have the Franks with the extra Knights line of sight bonus. This can definitely be useful when chasing down enemy units, but I don't think it's as good as something like the Hun bonus where your units train faster. For me, this is probably either a high C tier or a low B tier. I'm thinking just below the human bonus, to be honest. Next up, you have the Goths with the faster producing barracks. Now, similar to the Celts bonus, a lot of the time you don't see infantry being made en masse a lot of the time, especially on open maps. On more closed maps though, this can be quite a useful bonus, especially if you've got like a Slav infantry or a Japanese infantry spam going on. I'm going to place this hesitantly on the B tier for the moment. It has potential for A tier bonus as well though. Next up, as I was saying about in the Franks bonus here, we have the Huns. The Huns producing 20% faster on their stables. To me, this is a huge bonus in line with the Briton archery range bonus, where you are going to be producing units much more quickly than you would otherwise be doing so. Now we have probably one of the most useless bonuses in the game. Thank you to the Incas, where your farms now produce 100% faster. To me, this is an easy F tier bonus. There are very few times where this little bit of villager time saved is going to be that useful. And in fact, if you're waiting for a farming upgrade and you started placing your farms, you have to wait to see them a little bit later, otherwise you're not going to get the bonus from the farming upgrade. Next up, we have the Indian bonus. It allows your camels to do an extra 4 damage to buildings. This includes things like Mamelukes, as they are still classified as camel units. Most of the time though, it's not particularly useful. It is more useful for the Indian camel units themselves, as otherwise they'd be doing very little damage to buildings. I'm tempted to put this on the D or the C tier. Probably C tier, honestly, above the Burmese bonus. Next up, you have the Italians. The Italians making it so the Condo is available in Imperial Age. Similar to a lot of these other bonuses where you get an extra unit, it's very situational where a condottiere will be useful. However, in those situations, it can be nice to have an extra unit that can now counter gunpowder. I'm thinking this is probably on the C tier. Definitely above the Byzantine bonus, just below the Frank bonus, as the Frank bonus is more usable for more of the game. Next up, we have the Japanese. The Japanese having the galleys with plus 50% line of sight, and of course, for all land maps, this team bonus is completely useless. And even on a water map, I don't think this is the best water bonus, to be honest, especially not for a team bonus anyway. So it's going to be on the D tier, just above the Berbers. Next up, we have the Khmer. And the Khmer make it so your Scorpions have an extra 1 range. Now, it's obviously great for the Khmer themselves getting that bonus 1 range on their Scorpions, especially on closed maps. But it often doesn't really benefit your team. And Scorpions are very specific units. To me, this is probably a C tier bonus. Above the Burmese, but below Indians. I'm actually thinking we're going to move the Ethiopians down by a little bit here as well. Next up, we have the Koreans. Now, unlike the Scorpion, the Mangonel bonus here, which is so that your minimum range is now reduced, the Mangonel is often used a little bit more often than the Scorpion, especially on closed maps. To me, this is a B tier bonus, just below the Chinese farm bonus. Next up, we have the Lithuanians. The Lithuanians make it so your monasteries train 20% faster, and this also includes technologies as well. Now, if you're going for a monk rush, this is a really helpful technology to have, even if the Lithuanians is not the civ that's actually doing it, or if you're just going for a general relic contest. To me, this is probably just below the Goths and the Celt bonuses, which are more usable in more situations, but still really useful to have. Next up, you have the Magyars with extra line of sight on their archers. Now, similar to a lot of other line of sight bonuses, I don't think this is that revolutionary, especially on a unit that has already got quite a decent line of sight. So it's going to be a C tier, probably just below the knight bonus, because the knight bonus at least makes it so that if you have those knights on aggressive stance, they're more likely to attack, whereas with the Magyar line of sight bonus here, it's not that useful most of the time, except maybe if you're seeing a Manganar and then needing to back off a little bit sooner than you otherwise would be going to. Next up, we have another one of those bonuses which is quite useless in my opinion, and that is from the Malay. Malay make it so that the docks have extra line of sight, and similar to a lot of these other line of sight bonuses, it's not that useful, and of course for this, it's now only useful on water maps. It's probably even more useless than the Inca farming bonus, I would say. Next up, we have the Malians, and this is an easy A or S tier bonus for me. It makes it so your universities work 80% faster. So this means things like chemistry and ballistics, which are known to take quite a while to come in, now come in much more quickly. And those are crucial techs for your archer units. So I'm going to put this on the A tier, but with the reservation that it could be an S tier later on. After that, we have the Mayan bonus, which makes it so your walls cost minus 50%. This is pretty good, especially for late game when you're stonewalling, and it is of course useful in the early game as well, saving you a little bit of wood on those palisade walls. I'm going to put this in the A tier alongside the Malians for the moment. After that, you have the Mongols with the scout bonus. This makes it so you have extra line of sight from Dark Age with your scout line. If I'm not mistaken, it's an extra 2 line of sight. This is huge for early game scouting. In my opinion, this is an easy S tier, unlike a lot of those other line of sight bonuses. Of course, it does not impact Eagle Warriors though. Next up, you have the Persians, is to make it so you do an extra 2 damage to archers with the Knight line. I think this is a useful bonus. I don't think it's revolutionary, but I would definitely say it's more useful than the Frank bonus and probably more useful than the Human bonus. So it's going to be probably low B tier. Next up, you have the Poles, which allow your light cavalry units to do a bonus 1 damage to archer units. In team games, you're not often wanting to make too many light cav where possible, but they are probably the most useful of trash units in team games, and in 1v1s honestly a lot of the time as well. I'm thinking this is probably a C tier bonus just behind humans, but definitely useful, especially in those early game scout archer wars. Next up, we have the Portuguese with probably one of the best bonuses, especially if you are not playing with people you know, and that is making it so that you share your line of sight from Dark Age, not just when you build a market. For me, this is another S tier bonus, probably just below the Mongols, because the Mongol bonus affects everyone, and you can use communication to make up for the lack of being able to see each other. But the Portuguese bonus is such a huge help in the early game, except maybe on nomadic maps. Next up, we have the Saracens, which make it so your archers do 2 bonus damage to buildings. This used to be scaling, so you do an extra damage in Castle and Imperial Age to what you do now, but it is still a solid bonus. I think, to me, this would probably be another B tier bonus just above the Aztec Relic bonus. Now we have one of the ones that was changed in the last patch, and that is the Sicilians. Sicilians now make it so you get a free transport ship that is trained instantly. Now on water maps, this is probably, if it's not the strongest water map bonus, one of the 2 strongest water map bonuses. It's going to go in the A tier for the moment. Being able to land your opponent is quite a scary thought, to be honest. Especially when you know it's for free and they don't have to invest as much as they would normally have to do so. Now we have the Slav bonus, which makes it so all your military buildings across the team give you 5 extra pop space. Now in early game, this is quite a good buff, because now you're having to build 1 less house in the early game, and 2 once you have your second military building up in feudal. I would say this is probably an A tier bonus, maybe close to B as well, somewhere in between the two. Now we have another one of the strongest team game bonuses in my opinion, that is the Spanish. They make it so your trade carts can carry 25% extra capacity. This means that you're going to be generating an extra bit of gold for no extra effort in the late game. Of course, it doesn't benefit anything up until that late game where trade does start kicking in, but you can be generating a massive amount extra towards those later stages, so it's going to be an S tier for me. Probably just above the Mongols and the Portuguese bonus, as it is more scalable. Next up, we have the Tatar bonus, which makes it so your cavalry archers have an extra 2 line of sights. Similar to the Magyar bonus, I don't find this to be that useful, but it can be situationally good. I'm actually going to move the Italian bonus above all 3, even 4 of these bonuses, to be honest, because condos I feel like have more situations where they're more useful than having the extra line of sight on any of those buildings. Next up, we have the Teuton bonus, which makes it so your units are more resistant to conversion. I actually quite like this bonus. It's very understated, but it can be very useful, especially on maps like Arena, where you might end up against a monk rush, or on a 1v1 scenario where your opponent's got a few monks to try and get some conversions in. Well, now the Teuton bonus makes it significantly harder, especially against siege units. I'm probably thinking this is a B tier bonus, just above the Bulgarian bonus. Next up, we have the Turks, which makes it so your gunpowder units train faster, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check that. Yeah, they're created 25% faster. Most of the time, though, you're not making gunpowder units. This does impact bombard cannons and cannon galleons, so it can be situationally quite useful, but it's definitely not as useful as having faster producing siege or infantry. Thinking this is probably a little bit below the Saracen bonus, but still in the top 50% of these bonuses. Next up, we have the Vietnamese bonus, and the Vietnamese team bonus is that you can research the Imperial Skirmisher. Now, similar to a lot of other bonuses that include trash units, it's not particularly useful in most team game scenarios, but it can be good to have a better trash unit if it does go to a trash war. To me, this is definitely more useful than the Genitor, but not as useful as having Condotieros, so I'm thinking it's probably going to be down just ahead of the Khmer bonus. Next up, actually I should say finally, we have the Viking bonus, and that makes it so your docks are 15% cheaper. I don't think this is a crazy bonus, but it's definitely one of the stronger water map team bonuses, and to me this would probably be I'm gonna say B tier bonus, just ahead of the Persian bonus. Those are my opinions on all of the team bonuses in AoE2. Let me know what you agree with, let me know what you disagree with. Thanks for watching, subscribe if you like this content, I'll see you next time.